everybody from the East Coast of the United States, where we are in the middle of a bomb cyclone. Not exactly sure what that means because we're not weather people, but here we are at the Hypertrophic Cardiomyopathy Association, but working from home. And we have somebody joining us from Connecticut today for a new series that we're calling Meet Those with HCM, Real Life Stories. We'll be bringing you these programs over the next couple of months, and we're going to show you all different aspects of living with hypertrophic cardiomyopathy. At the end of our presentation today, we're going to give you an opportunity to ask questions either to the HCMA or to our guest, and we'll be more than happy to address those questions for you. And without further ado, I want to welcome Mike Papale to join us today, and I've got some questions for him. So first of all, good morning or good afternoon, Mike. How are you today?
I'm good, Lisa. Thank you very much for having me.
It's my pleasure. So Mike, when is the first time you heard hypertrophic cardiomyopathy?
Yeah, so I was actually sitting in a hospital bed when I was 17 years old, and had no idea really why I was there. But my cardiologist came in and told me I was diagnosed with hypertrophic cardiomyopathy, and I think my first reaction was like, "Huh? Like that's a really big word and sounds really hard to say." And I really had no idea what it was or what it meant.
And why were you in the hospital?
So I was in the hospital because I had recently suffered a sudden cardiac arrest while I was working a basketball camp in my hometown. And, I was very lucky that, a man in the building next door was able to get to me in time and give me CPR and sustain me until I was shocked with a defibrillator. And again, at this time when I was sitting there in the hospital, I didn't really understand any of this. I really was confused as to why I was there and had no idea that I could possibly have something wrong with my heart when I was 17.
So you're 17 years old, you're at a camp, you're working, and the next thing you know, you're in a hospital and somebody's saying hypertrophic cardiomyopathy.
Exactly.
And how long were you in the hospital for? And do you remember anything about that time?
So I spent 2 weeks there, and the first 2 days I was completely unconscious. I don't remember anything really from 2 hours before my cardiac arrest and 2 days after. So, which is probably a good thing. The first memories I have is waking up and going through all different types of testing, going through EKGs, echocardiograms, cardiac MRIs, the cardiac catheterization, and then learning that I had this condition. And I was a basketball player at the time and hoping to play basketball in college. And the first things my doctors told me upon being diagnosed was, you have this condition, and it's great that you survived sudden cardiac arrest because it's obviously very rare and unfortunate that people survive, but you're never going to play competitive basketball again. So it was definitely a very emotional time, balancing like the feeling of being lucky and blessed that I survived the cardiac arrest incident, but also having a huge aspect of my life being taken away from me.
Yes, but we can see over your shoulders that sports isn't far from your heart. So you're still involved in the degree that you can be within sports, correct?
Yes, exactly. And, I had a choice. I could have very easily said, I don't want to even be around basketball anymore because, it was taken from me in the aspect of playing. But that's not what I did. I stayed around the game. My brother was growing up and kind of going through the same process I was going through in terms of trying to play in college. And I ended up actually coaching college basketball for 6 years upon graduating from college. And so basketball has been a huge part of my life before my cardiac arrest, and it still is to this day. I'm no longer coaching college basketball, but I'm still surrounded by it on multiple different levels.
That's a really interesting aspect of when people with HCM are told no more sports. A lot of them do go into management or coaching or stay involved with the activity to some degree to keep their social network. Did you think that was important for you?
Yeah, I definitely, I think any athlete is naturally competitive and, needs to have that feeling of competition in their life. And I mean, what better way to do it than coaching? It was basically the next best thing for me. It was like, I can't be on the court impacting a game that way, but I could be on the sidelines and doing what, I can do from here and impact the game that way. So it was definitely different, but it was a great way for me to stay involved in the game and be able to kind of still have that competitive nature.
So I'm kind of grinning here because I can remember a phone call from a mom in Connecticut, panicked. Her son had just survived a sudden cardiac arrest. He was unconscious at the time. And that was, what did we say this morning? 11 years ago.
11 years, yep.
And that woman was your mom.
Yep.
And one of the first things I remember discussing with her after making sure that you had the proper care and that you were going to get a defibrillator and all those things were put in place, she says, but he loves sports. What are we going to do? I said, redirect, Mom. Redirect him.
Yep.
Teach him to coach. Teach him, like, let him be an assistant coach. Get the coach involved that's on his team right now. And that worked out really well for you guys, I say.
Yeah, it did. I mean, obviously, like I said, I think my mom and my dad and had the same reaction I had when my doctor walked in the room and said, you have hypertrophic cardiomyopathy. It was like, what? Like, you know, and it was confusion on their end too, because as a parent, you know, you think you have complete control of your child and everything they do and you keep them safe. And that's kind of like your job as a parent. And in that moment during my cardiac arrest and in that moment when I was diagnosed with a condition with my heart, you know, my mom lost control and she didn't know where to turn. And her natural thing to do was research and go on the computer. And, you know, she got connected with you and the HCMA and it was just a way to, you know, just kind of get some direction and hear from somebody, obviously, that, you know, has a condition herself, but also has studied the condition from, you know, at the level that you studied it and dealt with different patients and at all different ages and kind of have seen different avenues that they've taken with their life following an incident like this. And, you know, I know for her, the support and the knowledge that you were able to give her was huge, and giving her the, you know, the feeling that she could kind of gain some of that control back and kind of help me navigate through the next stages of my life.
So let's talk about the next stages. So after your recovery, and you know, you had to get a little time there. You ended up going off to a center of excellence for an evaluation as well, as did your family. Can you tell us about that experience?
Yeah. So, you know, we in the region, you know, we heard of the Marins, and you know, we got connected at Tufts Medical Center, and that experience has really changed my life. You know, in terms of Dr. Marin has allowed me to understand and believe and trust that as an HCM patient, I can live a very normal and long and happy life. And obviously while keeping me like safe at the same time, it's, you know, and teaching me kind of how to figure out what I can do, what I can't do. And trusting my body, trusting my ICD, trusting my medication, trusting the doctors and nurses and their ability to relate and help me grow and kind of go through this. And especially at 17 years old, it was a really critical time in my life, like figuring out what am I going to do? Right. You know, we're like it is for any 17-year-old now, not let alone a 17-year-old that has just gone through cardiac arrest. So they were a huge support and a huge reason why I think that I've lived with this condition and I'm content and I'm happy and I'm really excited with where my life's going.
So let's talk about things that me, a nearly 50-year-old woman, doesn't have to deal with so much. So you're a young man.
Yep.
And, you know, you have to date and have a normal life with HCM. Has HCM impacted that part of your life at all? And can you tell us a little bit about that?
You know, it has an impact, but not a negative impact. I mean, I think like relationship you have with anybody, upon meeting them, it might not be the first thing that you mention to them, but as you know, as you see yourself kind of maybe potentially having a serious relationship with somebody, obviously it's something that needs to be explained, and for multiple reasons. You know, so people know that you have this condition, or you know, and God forbid something happened, what would they do? You know, if I did go into cardiac arrest again, would they be able to do something to help me? Would they understand that I have an ICD, but God forbid the ICD didn't work? Do they know that I could still get shocked by an external defibrillator? Like little things like that. I think knowledge is extremely important for any relationship you have in your life, especially in the dating world. And obviously when you are dating, you want to be with somebody that's supportive of you and appreciates, you know, you for who you are and respects, you know, whatever it is you have going on in your life and can kind of embrace that. So it definitely has had an effect, but you know, no one's ever had like a negative reaction to it, but if someone ever did it, then you know that's not the right person.
Very well said. Now, what about going out and partying with the guys and having a couple drinks and being a young guy?
Yeah. So, you know, I do go out with the guys. I do do drink, and this was a learning experience, of course, like anything is, over the course of the last 11 years. And when I got diagnosed with the condition, I was heading off to college, which happens to be the time where you do that the most. And I didn't at first, and I was nervous, and which is normal. But over the course of time, I've learned what my body can handle, what is the right thing to do, how to do it in moderation, how to kind of still have fun and go out with the guys, but do it, at a level that's safe for me, having, hypertrophic cardiomyopathy and a defibrillator.
So you've gone to college, you have had relationships, you've gone out and drank with guys. You might not play basketball anymore on the team, but you've been involved with sports. So basically, you're kind of normal, aren't you?
Yeah, it's completely. Except for this big bump on the side where my defibrillator is, I'm completely normal. But and that's one of the greatest things about having this condition and learning about it and kind of navigating life with it, is you learn that you can't be normal. Like there's definitely moderations, and that's okay. Like for example, working out. Like I work out all the time. I work out with my brother. My brother was a Division I athlete. Can I work out at the same level as my brother? No, but I do what's best for me, and I navigate my life, and I'm satisfied with doing whatever it is in my life that's best for me, and I'm okay with that. And it's very normal. It's I have a day-to-day life is just like any other person's day-to-day life. Like I said, I work out, I work, I do hang out with friends, I go out, I eat, I have drinks occasionally. I live a very, very normal life.
That's great. Now, did anybody else in your family get diagnosed with HCM as a result of your diagnosis?
So, my dad did, and it was very shocking for him. And obviously we learned that HCM is a hereditary condition. So they diagnosed me with it, and they said, well, we're going to have to diagnose or, test your parents. And so that's the first thing they did. And my dad, was diagnosed with the condition, and, he's 56 years old, and it hasn't affected him one day in his life. He's never had a symptom. He played 2 sports in college, was a very successful college athlete, played basketball in men's leagues probably till the age of 35, and has never affected him a day in his life. And, it was shocking for him. And I think it was hard for him to hear about this condition, and kind of scary, but, it was good for us to know. And, it was also a challenge with my brother, because my brother was coming up. He's 4 years younger than me. He was a high level athlete training at a very, very high, very, very intense level. And he had to get tested every year. And I don't know, it was a very scary day for us whenever he got tested, because obviously we didn't want him to have the condition and have it get taken away from him as well. But we've learned a ton about this condition because of my diagnosis, which is good. You're better off knowing than not knowing. And
did you guys have genetic testing done?
We did a long time ago, but the gene was unconclusive. Yep, unconclusive.
So your brother's still having his annual screenings?
Annual screenings. We go together to see Dr. Marin.
So we do have a question coming in that I'll address, and then we'll get back to this in a bit. Angel wants to know if HCM can skip generations, and the term skip doesn't work in HCM. We have something called incomplete penetrance, where one member of the family may have exhibited signs and symptoms of the disease, and another family member is silent, but they're carrying the gene or have mild hypertrophic cardiomyopathy in terms of the anatomy. So it doesn't actually skip. It is an autosomal dominant genetic disorder. Thereby, if it's in the family, the child has a 50-50 chance of getting it. So for your brother, it's a coin toss, whether or not he's going to end up, showing disease or not. But if he's made it, he's what now, 20 now?
No, he's old. He's 24.
24.
Think about that. Yeah.
I know. I think that you were 17 last week. So
yeah, exactly.
I'm sorry. You're still a 17-year-old kid to me. But it will never skip a generation. It may be what we call incomplete penetrance. So getting back to Mike's story, before we take questions, I wanted to give Mike an opportunity to tell us, what are you doing with your life now, Mike?
So At the end of last basketball season, I gave up my coaching career because I had started a nonprofit foundation called In a Heartbeat, and we raise money and we donate defibrillators, and we try to find places that are in need of them but don't have the funds to acquire them. So schools, businesses, organizations, churches, we've donated to a family. Really anybody that, and as we know, cardiac arrest happens anytime, anywhere. So they really need to be everywhere, but we try to focus on places where the participants at these, or the people that these places serve, are at high risk for cardiac arrest, and we donate them. And we also raise money for hypertrophic cardiomyopathy research projects. So it's been really fun. It's been a really fun learning experience. I'm really happy to be involved and learn from people like you, and and kind of navigate this world and try to help save lives along the way. So
that's very admirable, and we're looking forward to some partnerships in the future with you guys so that we can help get AEDs where they need to be. We know that a lot of states have already passed legislation to mandate them in schools or in athletic fields, etc., but it's not 100% yet, and there's big problems with public schools versus private schools versus sanctioned sporting events versus club events. We need to make sure that everybody understands the importance of external defibrillation.
Exactly. And with what we do is in putting them in and training people. And so they're not just on the wall, and, people know how to react, and people have an action plan if someone goes into cardiac arrest, and do everything we can to give that person the best chance to survive.
Exactly. And that's why we're looking forward to relaunching our Drill Doctor Heart program with you guys in the coming year, we hope.
Yeah.
So we'll talk more about that when we're offline. So now we'll open it up to any questions if we have any. We had, one person popped in, Jessica, with a comment that the first time she ever heard about hypertrophic cardiomyopathy, it was idiopathic hypertrophic subaortic stenosis, which, Jessica, means either you were diagnosed before 1980 or your doctor didn't have proper terminology at that time. I was diagnosed in 1980 with idiopathic hypertrophic subaortic stenosis. Try to say that at 12 years old.
Yeah. I thought mine was tough.
Yeah, we shortened it up for you guys. We're trailblazers. We're making it easier for the next generation. But yes, that is a common terminology. Actually, Dr. Marin published his first article on converting the name away from IHSS to HCM in about 1980. And to this day, there are still doctors out there who call it IHSS. So that gives you an indication of when they got their education.
Yeah.
You might want to visit a center of excellence for your care rather than the guy still calling it IHSS. Mm-hmm. So come on, guys. You have to have questions for Mike or for me. We've got a few more minutes that we're going to spend here today. And the good news about these videos is they're going to be public on our Facebook page, and people can share them and help spread awareness about HCM through sharing these videos. Seth is asking us a question now. Is there any data on working out and the progression of HCM? So thank you for that inroad there, Seth. So there's a study called Live HCM. Mike, are you a participant in that study yet?
Yes. Yep.
Awesome. So we're trying to answer those questions through this study. It is an NIH-funded study. I'm a co-principal investigator on the program with our friends at Yale, Stanford, University of Michigan, and a number of other sites that are recruiting sites, including Tufts and others. And we're going to be collecting Fitbit data and clinical data from 2,200 patients with HCM. We are still enrolling. So if you'd like to join Live HCM, you can get the information either from Live HCM Direct or through the HCMA website. And they'll send you a Fitbit and a consent form, and they'll tell you a little bit about the program. And all you need to do is check in quarterly with them, tell them what activity you're doing, and let them share your Fitbit data. And then hopefully in another couple of years, we'll be able to identify if there's progression in certain subsets of people with certain levels of activity, if there's safe levels of activity, if there's unsafe levels of activity. So the answer, Seth, is we don't know yet, but we're working on it. And our questions are kind of rolling in here.
Yeah.
Let's see. So again, Angel's asking us, you mentioned inconclusive on genetic testing. Is HCM something usually hard to find with a genetic test? We have a 50% chance of finding it right now in most centers. Different anatomies have higher levels of identification. Different family histories have higher levels of identification. But generally speaking, we only know half of the genes. It's not that it's hard to find. We just don't know where it's all hiding right now. The human genome is remarkably large. We know that there are mutations in the cardiac sarcomere that we believe cause most of hypertrophic cardiomyopathy, but we also now know there's something called the Z disc area, that there's some mutations in there that can also present with hypertrophic cardiomyopathy. And we also know that there are these mimickers or HCM spectrum disorders that cause syndromes that have different genetic causes. Danon disease, Castillo's disease, Leopard syndrome, Noonan syndrome. They all look like HCM, but they're a different mutation. So we're learning more, and we're going to do that together. And like Mike said, that his family was not able to identify a mutation. So we have another question, Kevin Page. Hey, Kevin. On an earlier point, can you use an external defibrillator? Here's a question for Mike on somebody who has an ICD. Mike, you want to address that?
Yeah. So, you can. The only thing you would want to make sure you do is don't put a pad over the device. So for me, my ICD, when I first went in, it was on the left side of my chest. So that's not in the way of where an automated external defibrillator pad would go. But now I have the subcutaneous ICD, which sits on my left side. So where you put one of the pads. So if my ICD didn't kick in for whatever reason, it malfunctioned, didn't work, you could put pads on me, and you would just want to make sure you put the pads below or to the side of the actual device. You want to put them right on the middle.
I have had cases where I had a young lady who had a storm, and the device went off 5 times, and then it didn't go off anymore because it only goes off so many times. And they did bring an external device to her, and they got her back. She was like 22, 23 at the time. She moved on to transplant because she kept having storms, but it did work. You were able to use the AED on top. Diane has a comment here. Love what you're doing through the nonprofit. Yep, we do too.
That's awesome. Thank you so much.
And Kevin, as long as someone knew you had the device. So Kevin, just kind of going through like a first responder thing, there are some gut instinct things that I think people will do right. Can't guarantee it, but I think they will. If they see a scar on your chest, because they're going to have your chest exposed, I think logic tells you, I'm not going to put it there. But worst case scenario, even if they put it there and it damages the device, you're likely to get a proper shock. And at least it saved your life, and then we can get on to the next challenge of probably replacing that device. But I think most people would say, I'm not going to put it over there. You've got a lot of body mass to cover. So we can go there. Okay, Mike, so we're going to wrap up here. We had a couple questions, which was really great to engage everybody. We'll give you another second or two to chime in. Any parting thoughts today, Mike?
No, well, first of all, thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it. I love sharing my story and obviously learning from other people. And I hope other people can learn, from my situation and kind of the way I've helped kind of move on and with my life and things I'm doing. So, best of luck to everybody that has a condition, and together we're a big community, and we're going to learn more and kind of live long and happy lives. So thank you very much.
Thank you for being with us today in the middle of a snowstorm. I know Mike wanted to come down to our office in New Jersey, but I'm not even in the office today. I'm doing this from home because we're in the middle of Snowmageddon here. But just proves that HCM is tough, and we just carry on regardless of bomb cyclones or whatever we're in right now. All right. Well, thank you all for joining us today. We really appreciate it. Stay tuned for the next installment of Real People with HCM, as well as our Meet the Moderator series. And we'll be meeting soon with some other physicians caring for patients with HCM right here on the Hypertrophic Cardiomyopathy Association Facebook page. Have a good day and be well. Thanks, Mike.
Thank you, Lisa.